are starting today a new chapter in the laws of Shmita. And this chapter will be called Shmita in the kitchen. Up until now we covered so many different topics, but now we'll be a little bit more practical in the kitchen, what needs to be done. And it goes as follows. It says, למרות שפירות השביעית ניתנו לאכילה ולשימושים נוספים. The basic halacha is that the fruit and vegetables of Sheviet are permitted for us to eat. It's not that we're not allowed to eat it. And not only that, we're allowed to use it for other things. So it says, even though the fruit and vegetables of Sheviet were given to us to eat and for other use, where do we learn that from? It says clearly in the Torah, in book of Vayikra, chapter 25, verse 6, "Vehaita Shabbat haaretz lachem leochla." In translation, and the produce of the seventh year of the land shall be yours to eat for you. So it's not that we're not allowed to eat it; it's just that we need to know how to do it. So our sages explain on the word yours, lachem, lechol tzorchechem, for all your needs. So the Torah is very clear. You can eat, you can do whatever you need to do. But there's all sorts of restrictions. Higbila haTorah et tnai hashimush, but there are restrictions, what I'm allowed to do, how I'm allowed to do it, how I'm allowed to use it, and so forth. The main restriction is, it goes as follows, asur lekalkel perot Sheviet. I'm not allowed to spoil the fruit of Sheviet. Now, I don't want to keep saying fruit and vegetables. It's called perot Sheviet because it's including the vegetables in the title. But it's fruit and vegetables together. So the Talmud says, it can be found in Tractate Psachim, page 52, and it says you're not allowed to spoil the fruit. You're allowed to eat it, you're allowed to do other things, but the main thing you're not allowed to do, I can't deliberately spoil it. And I'll explain thoroughly throughout this section what do I mean to spoil it. But I'm already giving you one detail up front. By me throwing fruit to the garbage, that's spoiling it. Go now 500 years back, food was not so spoiled like today. People would eat the food almost till the last bit. Now you eat a little bit, the rest you throw to the garbage. That's spoiling food because it's edible food for humans and animals, and you just dump it in the garbage. If we're lucky, the animals eat it, but most food gets spoiled. When it comes to fruit of Sheviet, we're not allowed to spoil fruit. Next, asur leshanot otam mibriyatan. Rambam, Maimonides says, I'm not allowed to change them from how they are created. Which again, I will elaborate on everything. In general, what it means, that there are restrictions how to use the fruits in regards to when I'm cooking them, baking them, and so forth. And another thing, asur leshanot mitzurat hishtamshut haregila. I'm not allowed to change the way how I use it usually. And again, everything that I'm saying to you now, we will explain now thoroughly. I'm just giving you in general. And more than that, וכן ישנם השתמשויות אחרות שנאסרו. And there are other ways of that usually I can use the fruit or the vegetables, but they're forbidden in the seventh year. למרות שרגילים להשתמש כך בשאר השנים. Even though that in regular years I can use them. So I have now mainly 4 restrictions. A, I'm not allowed to spoil the food. B, I'm not allowed to change it from how it was created. I shouldn't say A, B, C. 1, 2, 3. I'm not allowed to use it in a ways that it is usually used in other years. And which is 3 and 4 are kind of the same. 3 is I'm not allowed to change how I use them, the regular using, and other ways of using the fruit that is also not allowed to, like even though it's allowed in the rest of the years. So this is in general what we're going to talk about. Now let's see more thoroughly. So it says as follows. Halacha Aleph. En mitzvah lechol perot Sheviet. There's no mitzvah to eat the perot Sheviet. There's mitzvah to guard, not work the land, and many other things. But to actually eat the fruit and vegetables, there's no mitzvah to that. And if this is the case, how would I act when I have a bunch of fruits in my kitchen and they're going and becoming spoiled? Now, like I told you, go 500 years back, everything was calculated. And maybe I'm wrong, I didn't live 500 years. Well, I might have lived 500 years ago, I just don't remember it. Maybe somebody had an abundance and they didn't have the problem. But nevertheless, how is about when I have fruit in my kitchen, in my fridge, and they're slowly going to rot? Do I have to rush to eat it because it's perot shevi'it? No, there's no mitzvah to eat it. So it says, "En mitzvah le'echol perot shevi'it, lamrot sholchim v'nirkavim," even though they're going and becoming rotting and spoil. Why? She'arei kilkul ne'esa me'elav, because it's done by default, by itself. I didn't do anything. So if I bought fruit, and we're talking only, by the way, about fruit of Shevi'it. We're not talking now of imported fruit. We're not talking about citrus, perot hadar, lemons, grapefruits, oranges that came from the previous year. We're not talking about these. We're only focusing now on perot Shevi'it. Because like I told you, in many cases, there are many ways I can get fruit and vegetables. So just to make an important side note, we're only focusing on perot shevi'it. So first halacha, I don't have to rush to eat it because it's becoming spoiled. Why? Because it's becoming spoiled by itself. Next, halacha bet. Asur lekalkel perot shevi'it, afilu kolshu. I'm not allowed to deliberately spoil the fruit or the vegetables. Because one might say, listen, I can't throw it to the garbage, right? I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to throw perot shevi'it to the garbage, so let me spoil it. I'll pour, I don't know, what bleach on it or whatever it is. I'll put it in the sun. It will rot within 2 minutes. That I'm not allowed to do. Well, putting in the sun, there's a few restrictions and ways how to do it. But deliberately to spoil the fruit, I'm not allowed to do it. In any type of a way. Shene'emar, how do we learn that? Because it says in the Torah, le'ochla. I can use the fruit of Shevi'it, but to eat. ולא להפסד, not to lose it. Now, with that said, כל הקדוש בקדושת שביעית נכלל באיסור זה. Anything that has the kedusha, the holiness of Shevi'it, is included in this rule. And what does that mean? מאכל אדם, anything that is edible for humans. מאכל בהמה, anything that is edible for animals. Because I can have sheep or cattle or whatever, and I need them to eat. So maybe I'm not eating it, but they're eating it. And tzimchei reach, any type of plants that give scent and odor that I would use for smelling. Whether I smell it or not, it's irrelevant. But the plant gives the odor, that's it. So we have anything that is edible for humans, anything that is edible for animals, and plants that make smell. Smell, odor, scent. כמו כן אסור להשליך פירות שביעית למקום שנמסים למאכל לרוב בני אדם. I'm not allowed to take any fruit of Shevi'it and to throw it in a place, for sure not a garbage, but in a place that, the word that he's using, nim'asim. Now, if I would look to translate the word nim'as in English, would be to despise, despicable, contemptible. But that's not really what it means, nim'as. You can't say makom ma'us. Makom ma'us is like a despicable place. So, most of us will imagine the garbage, but I'm not allowed to throw the fruit to the sewer. It's not a place that, if you would find fruit in the sewer, you're not going to take it out and eat it. Maybe some people are extremely hungry, chas v'shalom lo aleinu, that they will take it out and wash it. But in a place that it's disgusting, then, and nobody will, if they'll find the food in there, they're not going to touch it, and I'm not allowed to throw it over there. Of course, the main thing that it's including is the garbage. But in other places, that I might say, listen, I don't want this fruit. It's stinking my house. It's too much. Somebody gave me a box with 5,000 potatoes. I don't know what to do with it. Now, why are you dumping it on me? Sometimes people drop things in front of my house without even telling us, without notifying us. Somebody dropped boxes of vegetables. I'm like, why are you dropping boxes here? No, you feed people. I said, I don't feed a stadium of people. I don't need so many boxes. Besides, ask me. Maybe I have already some of this food. Why are you dumping food in front of my house? So, but nevertheless, I don't want to get rid of my fruit. so I'm not allowed to throw it in the garbage or any place שנמאסים למאכל רוב בני אדם, that most people, if they would find the food there, they won't touch it. So that can be the sewer, garbage dump, or many other places. He says, כגון לפח אשפה. The garbage is more common. And it says most people, because some people, Hashem Yerachem, are in a place that they will go into the garbage dump and take the food. Hashem should not bring us into this situation, chas v'shalom. Next, halacha gimel. אין לקלקל טעמם של פירות שביעית על ידי שמערב בהם דבר מר. Since I'm not allowed to get rid of the fruit, then some people will try to think one step ahead and say, hey, let me spoil the food somehow, and then that way it's not edible. And if it's not edible, then then it's, so to say, spoiled, and I can't eat it, and I can throw it. So it says you're not allowed to spoil the taste by pouring something bitter on it or in it. You're not allowed to do such a thing. For example, kagon le'arev trufa, by to put some type of bitter medicine in the juice or in the wine of Sheviet to make it spoil. Not allowed to do that. Now, why would somebody want to do that? Because you need to somehow get rid of it. If I have a lot of it and I don't know how to get rid of it, then I would think, oh, let me think one step ahead. I'll spoil it. That you're not allowed to do. And a lot of these examples are important. It's completely off the subject, but very soon is Pesach, and we're going to need to learn, how do I get rid of the chametz? I mean, Pesach is every year. Sheviet is once every 6 years. Oh, every 6 years on the 7th year. But there are many ways that we're going to do the exact same thing with chametz. I find chametz, how do I dispose it? Next, אסור לבשל פירות שביעית שהדרך לאוכלם חיים. If the way to eat the fruit or vegetables of Sheviet is to eat it raw, and that's the only way of eating it, I'm not allowed to cook it. More than that, ואם הדרך לאוכלם בין חיים, בין מבושלים מותר. But if I can eat it either cooked or raw, then I'm allowed to do that. Now I can't think of anything that's not common to cook. I mean, can't even think of anything right now. But what? Beans? Peanuts? I mean, you can roast them. So I can't think of anything now. Maybe, I don't know, oranges. You don't cook oranges. How can you cook oranges? What? Mango? Yeah. Well, anyways, he's not being specific here, and I can't think of anything. But the fact, what the halacha is, if you eat it raw, and there's no way of eating it cooked, you're not allowed to cook them. And if you can cook them, you can eat them cooked, roasted, fermented, whatever, steamed or raw, then it's fine, then you can do it. Okay? Simple halacha. Next, halacha hey. מותר להשתמש ביין של שביעית לדלת כוסות ליל סדר. Okay. Now, most of the wine that we buy now, it's not coming from this year. Unless you make your wine yourself. Most of us don't make the wine ourselves. You go to the store, you buy your wine, and most likely it will be from 2020, 2019, or whatever, how back you go. So there's no issue with that. But how is about that you have your hands, suddenly you got good wine that came from the year of Sheviet, then the halacha here is that I'm allowed to use it for the 4 cups of Leil Seder. Good to know. More than that, לכידוש והבדלה. I'm also allowed to use it for kiddush and avdala. ולשאר כוסות של ברכה. And any type of kos של ברכה. What is a kos של ברכה? Is when I make a blessing on the cup. What are they? So we have the 4 cups of wine of Pesach. And then I have kiddush and avdala on Shabbat. Can you think of any other kos של ברכה? Brit Milah. You do borei pri hagefen in Brit Milah, right? And many other cases, but nevertheless, I'm allowed to use it on any type of kos shel bracha. Kos shel bracha can be sheva brachot, can be birkat hamazon. I don't have to now elaborate on every kos shel bracha. It's called, kos shel bracha means a cup that you say a blessing on. More than that, if this is the case, and I want to use it for kiddush, or the 4 cups of wine on Pesach and so forth, yasim tzalachat tachat hakos. You have to put a plate under the cup, כדי שהיין הנשפך מעבר לגדותיו לא ילך לאיבוד. That the wine that overflows cannot be wasted now. You can't throw that wine. So if you use wine of Sheviet for any of these scenarios, you have to put a plate underneath, capture the wine that flows, that overflows, and then drink that. You can't lose that. Which will, of course, will bring us to understand the next halacha. Asur lechabot ner avdala beyain shel shvi'it. So I can't turn out the candle of avdala with wine that is wine of shvi'it, because then I spoil the wine, I spill it. Mipnei shemkalkel et hayain, because I'm spoiling the wine. V'chen lo yatif miyain shel shvi'it bishat minyan hamakot beleil seder. And also, if you're already using the wine of Sheviet for Leil Seder, if you remember, there's a part of the Haggadah, I know it sounds like, oh, Pesach is in 2.5 months. Not even, we're in Purim Katan today, so 2 months exactly. 2 months, you blink and it's already Pesach here. This Shabbat, we had an issue with the challah. My wife baked it after she cooked the meat. So the challah had a din of basari. When we had a sudah shlishit with the cheeses, we couldn't put it on the bread. And luckily that she mentioned that. So I said, okay, well, let's have, we'll wash for the bread and eat the bread as much as we can. But when you want to put a cheese on it or whatever, so we'll use, what do you have, crackers? She's like, I don't have crackers. So we found matzah. Okay, matzah is good. So I was like, oh, no, before we know it, we're going to be eating matzah. So, in the Haggadah, there's a part that we take wine and we put it in a bowl and we dip the finger. Well, each one has their customs, and you dam, tzfardea, kinim, and so forth. That you're not allowed to do with the yain shel shvi'it. Why? Because you're spoiling the wine, you're wasting the wine, you're not drinking it. Next, halacha zayin. 7. Asur lekalkel ma'achal shel shvi'it. I'm not allowed to spoil any type of dish that was made with fruit and vegetables of shvi'it. Lamrot she'al yedei ze mashbiach u'metaken ma'achal acher. That with that, by spoiling one dish, I will make the other dish taste better. For example, לפיכך, לא יכבוש ירקות ולא ינקה חסה בחומץ של שביעית. So I'm not allowed to ferment vegetables or clean lettuce with vinegar that was done in the year of Sheviet. Okay? So I'm not allowed to waste one thing in order to better another thing. And the example he gives us, either fermenting vegetables or cleaning vegetables. Why? כיוון שאחר כך שופך את החומץ, because after that you spill the vinegar and you wasted it. More than that, אסור למשוך תבנית או מחבת בשמן של שביעית. I'm not allowed to take a pan and to smear it with oil of Sheviet in order for whatever dish I'm going to put there should not stick. כשהמשיכה היא רק כדי שלא ידבק המאכל. Let's say you make some type of how do you call it, a pashtida, a knish, or you make some type of a dish that if you put it in the pan or in the pot or in the Pyrex or whatever it is, it's going to stick. So what do you usually do? You put some oil. But now we have a problem. Use oil from a previous year. Oil from Sheviet, then you can't do that. Why? Again, because you're not using the oil. You're using the oil in order to make the dish better. So that we're not allowed to do. Therefore, you have to be very careful where you bring your stuff from. Where you buy your wine, where you buy your vinegar, where you buy your oil, and so forth. Next, הלכה ח' אסור לבטל אפשרות אכילה מפירות שביעית, אף על פי שהם נשארים עדיין ראויים לסיכה והדלקה. I'm not allowed to not eat the fruit of Shevi'it, even though they will be eligible, or I don't know if to say eligible, rather they will be worthy for sika, means to smear it like an ointment, or hadlaka, I can use it for burning. So I will explain. אסור לערבב בשמן של שביעית חומרים שונים למטרת סיכה או הדלקה. So I can't take the oil that was created on the 7th year and to mix with it any type of material substance to create an ointment from that. Because the point here is the ointment, not the oil. Or to use it to something flammable. I want to now light my wood burning stove, and I want to put some oil. So I cannot not use the oil because I want to use it for something else, even though I want to use it for either, and again, sika means to oil something, or it's not only oil, it can be with a cream, but that I'm rubbing it on me. Now again, this is not something so common. How often do you create some ointment or some cream with oil and you mix it with stuff? It's for certain people, but anyways, we learn the halakha. Not everything that we learn that we actually do. And why is that? Kivan mafsido ma'achila, because I'm not using the oil to eat. That's coming from the olives. I have to use it for eating. And if I'm not using it for eating, then I'm losing the oil. Next, halacha tet. יש מתירים לגרום לפירות שביעית שיתקלקלו. Some will allow just to put the fruit on the side, let them rot. Deliberately. Why? כי הקלקול לא נעשה בידם, because I didn't do anything. I just put it here. Let it rot. Because once it's rotten, then I can throw it already. But nevertheless, יש אוסרים. But some will say, no, you deliberately did it. הלכה י' 10. יש להסתפק אם לשים פירות שביעית במקום חם או בשמש והם יתקלקלו שם. It's going to be a big doubt now that if I'm going to put the fruit in direct sunlight, knowing that the sun might make them rot. Now I'm putting myself in a doubt. I'm not allowed to do that because I'm deliberately making them rot. נחשב גרם הפסד. This will be considered that I caused a loss, or הפסד בידם, or that the fruit will be lost. Lost, I mean you can't eat them. Then I did that. That you're not allowed to do. וכן אם מניח את הפירות במקום שהשמש לא נמצאת, but how is about that I put the fruit in the morning when the sun is not there, but I know that eventually the sun will get there. יש להסתפק אם נחשב שהם כלכלם בידיים. Then this will be a doubt if I caused it to be spoiled or not. Therefore, just don't do that. Next, הלכה י"א. מותר לחתוך פרי, אף על פי שדעתו לאכול חציו בלבד. I'm allowed to cut a fruit, even though I know for a fact that I'm only going to have a half of it. Because one might say, wait a minute, if let's say I eat an avocado, and I cut it in half, and I know I'm only going to eat half. The other half I don't want. Now one might say, wait a minute, by not eating the other half, what am I going to do with it? I can't throw it, and if I just let it rot, then I spoiled it myself. But the halacha says, mutar לחתוך פרי. I'm allowed to cut the fruit in half, even if I know that I'm only going to eat half of it. וגורם על ידי החיתוך לזירוז הקלקול של החצי הנשאר. And by that, what's going to happen? I'm causing the other half that is remaining to go spoil fast. And if you have the avocado whole, then it doesn't get spoiled so fast. Or it can be, I don't know what, grapefruit. Sometimes I don't want to eat the whole grapefruit. I want to cut it in half, just eat half. I'm allowed to do that. And why is that? Here there's a commentary, a side note, that Rav Eliashiv says שכל גרם הפסד שבא מכוח אכילת פירות שביעית מותר. That if there's going to be lost or damage to the fruit of Sheviet, but it came from by me eating, that is allowed to. So I'm allowed to eat half an avocado, half a grapefruit. Well, grapefruit, like I told you over and over, all the citrus fruit in this year started sprouting in previous year. So all the citrus, kol haperot hadar of this year are from last year. So they don't have kedushat Sheviet. Next year we're going to have this problem. Next year, lemons, oranges, grapefruit, and so forth will have next year kedushat Sheviet. So next year you need to know what to do. But nevertheless, I'm allowed to cut a fruit in half. And I gave an example on avocado. It can be with anything. Next, הלכה י"ב. אסור ליתן פירות שביעית לתינוק שאינו יודע לאכול בעצמו. I'm not allowed to give fruit of Sheviet to a baby that doesn't know how to eat by himself. Why? הוא מקלקל את מרבית האוכל, because he spoils most of it. Half falls on the floor, the other half is falling here, and he's just maybe sucking the juice of it. That I'm not allowed to do. אך מותר לתת פירות שביעית לקטן היודע לאכול את רוב הפרי. But for a young kid, קטן can be somebody who's 2-3 years old. תינוק is a baby. Babies don't really eat fruit, but let's say a year and a half, 2 years. Katan is 3 and above. That you can give a little kid a fruit, even though you know that he's not going to eat most of it, but he eats the majority. אף על פי שעלול לקלקל מקצתו, even though that a lot of it might go for waste. I'm talking about giving it to the little kid. אומנם אם רואהו שמקלקל, but if you see a little kid deliberately taking pieces out, throwing it on the floor, wasting it, and you know they're going to waste most of the fruit, יש למנוע, then you have to prevent it. וכן מותר לתת לפני בהמה מאכל בהמה, הקדוש בקדושת שביעית. More than that, I'm allowed to take edible food that is designated just for the animal, that has kedushat shvi'it, then I'm allowed to put in front of the animal. What it's going to eat, what it's not going to eat, that's none of I have no control of it. אף על פי שמקלקלת חלק מהאוכל, because the animal will waste some of the food. So listen, I don't know how many people have animals. Most people have a cat or a dog. Not many people have goats and sheep and donkeys and cows but nevertheless, some people do. And I have to have food for them. Now, most people, I think, that will have their own animals is for the sake of feeding the animals the right way. So they're not going to buy the GMO junk that they give in most farms. They're going to give real food to the animal. So for that, you have to have available food. By that, you can put it in front of the animal, let the animal eat. And that applies also to dogs, cats, and other animals in the house. So again, here he's talking about ma'achal behema. Behema is an animal that is urban, a sheep. Well, behema is behema daka, but nevertheless, sheep, cows, goats, stuff that you use around the house. I'm adding on it because a lot of people have a parrot or a fish or whatever, but that's usually they fed with animal food. But if happens to be that you want to feed your animal and it's with pirot shvi'it, then you can put it in front of the animal, let it eat, even though the animal will waste a lot of it. Next, הלכה י"ג, אסור לאכול פירות שביעית, אכילה גסה. Now, I don't know how to translate אכילה גסה in English. There's no really definition to that. אכילה גסה, there are two types of explaining it. The Talmud says אכילה גסה is that you eat a lot. How? Devourate? Devour. That's correct, but if you're going by the definition of the Talmud, אכילה גסה is that you eat a lot. Gluttony? No, not gluttony, just that you eat a lot. You can eat it in a very nice manner, but just you eat a lot. That's what the Talmud calls achilah gasa. You just eat a very large portion. Sometimes you see people, and chas v'shalom, not to hurt anybody's honor, you see an event, and they go to the buffet, and they take like a mountain of food. And that's achilah gasa. Whoa, there's 200 people here. Take a little portion. Maybe there's other people. Besides, why do you need so much? So that's what the Talmud says, achilah gasa. A different way of saying it, that you're eating it in a very not mannerable. How would you say? You can say mannerable. Not in a nice manner. You eat and the food falls here and spills everywhere. But nevertheless, אסור לאכול פירות שביעית באכילה גסה. So the fruit of vegetables of shvi'it, you can't eat it. So meaning don't eat too much and don't eat it in a way that it's going to start flying out of your mouth and somebody will eat corn and it goes everywhere. And sorry for the visuals, but the halacha says just keep it nice and civilized. Next, י"ד, עיסה שנעשתה מקמח הקדוש בקדושת שביעית. Now, Isa is a very interesting word because if you translate the word Isa, the translation is pulp, but not like a pulp of an orange, just something that is liquidy and made out of a certain material. So I will just call it now dough, because when do you use Isa? When you make dough. So, if you use dough or any type of pulp that is made from flour from the year of Sheviet, mafrishim ממנה chala, you have to separate, or להפריש means to set aside, the chala, the portion, אף על פי שצריך לשרפה כדין חלה, טמאה. Then what do you do with the הפרשת חלה? You have to burn it. Then one might say, hey, how can I burn it if it's coming from Sheviet? You just told me I'm not allowed to do that. So if you're making it for chala, for dough, and you're making chala on Shabbat, even though whatever you set aside has to be burnt, it's still allowed to do it if it's done from flour from Sheviet. That's very important because many women, they don't know what to do. They're either trying to get flour from last year, or they don't know how to do with it. So the halakha is clear. You're allowed to burn the challah. The challah, the piece that you separate. Okay, halakha 15. Mutar litol etrog shel Shvit. I'm allowed to take an etrog from the year of Sheviet, which will happen next year, by the way. למרות שקליפתו מתקלקלת על ידי מישוש הידיים. Even though the peel of it gets damaged by me touching it. So technically, one might say, wait a minute, by me holding the etrog a whole week, I'm ruining the skin. I'm not allowed to do that. So the halakha says, no. If you're taking it for netilat arba minim, the 4 species, you can do that. And by the way, the etrogim that we're going to use next Sukkot is going to be from Shvi'it. Because next year will be the 8th year, but the etrogim start growing already this year. So the etrogim of next year will have Kedushat Shvi'it, and we're going to have to deal with them accordingly. Next. Halacha 16, Tetzain. Odfei perot Shvi'it. How is about when I have remaining? I have too much, I have a lot of it. שברור שלא יאכלו. It's obvious for me that they're not going to be eaten. אסור לקלקלם. I'm not allowed to deliberately spoil them. And how would that happen? I have a neighbor, he has an orange tree. Some other neighbor went in, picked up all the orange, put it in a box, put it in front of my house. Here, take. It's and again, the oranges, I keep saying oranges, apples. Okay? And I got now a box with 300 apples that are perot shvi'it. I got it from my neighbor, whatever. Somebody brought it. Went on a hike, went on a drive, picked it, saw the trees. You know, last week we drove up to the Hermon, in the Ramat HaGolan. You have fields over fields over fields. And hypothetically, I can stop in any field I want, walk in and take whatever I want. So hefker. Now I can come home now with a box with 500 apples. So if you are really asking, how can that happen? Now how is about if I know now I'm going to have so many apples and they're not going to be eaten? What am I going to do with all these apples or these potatoes or whatever it is? Asur lekalkelam. I'm not allowed to deliberately and intentionally spoil them. Ela yanicham sheyirkavu me'atzmam. Put it on the side, let them rot by themselves. וכן אסור להאכיל לבעלי חיים כל זמן שהם ראויים לאדם. And if it's edible for humans and it's designated for humans, then I can't give it now to animals. Why? Because it's designated for humans. יש מתירים, some will allow, לגרום לקלקולם, some will allow in one way or in an indirect way to cause them to get spoiled, או לגרום למאכל אדם שברור שלא יאכל שיהפך למאכל בהמה. או if it's designated for humans, but to make some type of an action that it's not edible for humans, but it's good for animals, then some will allow to do so. And this is this is a side note from הרב אלישיב. וסברתו דייתכן לומר שגרם הפסד אסור, that he says that this is the Rav Eliashiv that says no, you can't cause something to become hefsed asur, that me somehow, I don't know how to do it, but that I'm taking the status from human that's edible for humans and then doing something that it's not edible for humans but animals can eat it. The Rav Eliashiv says you can't do that. You can't cause the vegetables now that humans can eat it, but animals can. אפילו לשיטות האוסרות, even the ones who will permit, רק בדבר שעומד להיאכל. Only you can do that if it's about to be eaten. So again, I can't give you an example because I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you take food that is designated for humans and you make it that it's not so designated for humans, or humans won't eat it, but animals will eat it. So maybe there's a way, maybe farmers know, I don't know. Step on it? Okay, let's do step on it. I mean, because I don't know if stepping on it will be sufficient, because some people might say, I don't care if you stepped on it. We step on grapes when we make wine. So maybe you're right. Some people won't eat it when it was stepped on. So maybe that's a good example. Now, how it will be connected to what Rav Elyashiv says, that you're causing a hefsed, and the hefsed is not permitted. Okay, I can look into it, but what you're saying can make a lot of sense. That somebody stepped on it, especially that's saying that most people won't eat it, but my animals will eat it. Very nice. Okay, and last halacha 17, פירות שביעית. אף על פי שנפסלו ממאכל אדם, even though they were taken or they were disqualified from eaten by humans, כל שראויים למאכל בהמה, even though now we transferred the status for animals eating, or what you said, I'm stepping on it. Let's say I said, okay, I have a lot of, I don't know, what an animal can eat. Okay, let's, for the sake of the example, apples. The donkeys will eat the apples, the horses will eat it. And we're stepping on it and squashing it. Now humans don't eat it, but the animals can eat it. Nevertheless, לא פקע מהם קדושת שביעית. Then I didn't take out the status. It still has status of shvi'it. I won't eat it, the animal will eat it. But nevertheless, the kedusha will stay. The kedusha of shvi'it will stay. ואסור לקלקלם. And for that, I'm not allowed to spoil them or throw them to the garbage. So with that, we can conclude the first section is about what's called lekalkel perot. Practically saying, I somehow get fruit, vegetables, wine, vinegar, oil, whatever it is that comes from the year of Sheviet, then I have to use it. I can use it. I have to use it in a holy manner. And what does it mean? Then I can make it rot, spoil, throw it in a very not nice way, and so forth. And that practically saying you have to deal with it in the kitchen, because you're going to have fruit and vegetables that you might not eat. Then one way, and we're going to learn in other sections, how do I get rid of the peels? How do I get rid of the seeds? How do I get rid of the remaining? I need an apple inside, it's not really a pit, but it's the inside of the apple. Most people don't eat that. I mean, you eat up until whatever you can, and that's it. So for now, at least we know that you can put the food aside and let it rot by itself. No, it might not be a nice odor, and there might be a lot of fruit flies. So put it aside, take it out of the house, put it on the window or something. But you have to be careful that you're not causing it to rot by putting it in the sun, or by putting it in freezing cold weather, and it will ruin the fruit or vegetables completely. You can't cause it to get spoiled. You can put it aside and let nature do its course, but you can't do that. And needless to say, that once it is spoiled and not edible, then you can throw it. There's no problem with that. But the key thing to remember here, you're not allowed to be responsible for that, with all the rules that we learn. And the next few sections are very interesting. Well, how we deal with it, as it's called, the Shmita in the kitchen. Well, how do I deal with everything? B'ezrat Hashem, next class will continue. In the meantime, keep your fruit holy.